Chelsea's recent performances against title contenders Arsenal, Tottenham and City have made it clear that they are no longer a joke. Players are now returning from injury and we've finally escaped the bottom half of the table. So it begs the question, will Chelsea make the top 4? A crazy question to ask, but it is definitely possible with around 26 match weeks ahead of us and only a 10-point gap from those sitting at 4th. Our most recent game was a 4-4 draw against City. Leading up to this, we battered Tottenham 4-1 and held a close 2-2 tie with the Gunners. We were expected to lose all 3 of these games, but we managed 2 draws and a win as if it were nothing. We broke Postecoglou's 52-game-long unbeaten streak, shocked Arsenal fans and unfolded City's defense. These were the hardest fixtures of the season, and even with half our squad recovering from injury, we didn't look like the losing team in any of these games. So this gives us lots of confidence going forward. Pochettino's done well with this high pressing 4-2-3-1 that he's implemented, and once the rest of our team returns, we will only be getting stronger. This all sounds good so far, but there's some big challenges we need to overcome before we can even dream of coming close to the top 4. And our first issue lies within our newest addition to the attack, Nicolas Jackson. For the last few years, Chelsea have had a rough time finding a new striker, with the likes of Timo Werner, Lukaku, Aubameyang and João Felix all failing to make their marks. The main problem with Jackson here is that he just isn't the clinical striker that Chelsea need. Don't get me wrong here, his hat-trick against Tottenham was amazing, but it was getting way more hate than love, because on one hand, he barely had an impact on the game and failed to put away loads of easy chances. But on the other hand, he scored a hat-trick, so it's hard to say he had no impact here. Overall, he isn't that bad, but he's also not consistent enough to be starting as Chelsea's main man. The obvious solution here would be to replace him. There's been talks of Ivan Toney or Victor Osimhen joining the squad, but you can't keep throwing money at the club and just expect results. What would make sense is to let Jackson play until January, maybe give Broja some starts as well, and see how they work alongside the catalyst that's sure to bring this team to the top, Christopher Nkunku. I know it's not much, but we saw in the preseason already, Nkunku literally elevated the team around him as he was the centerpiece of our attacks. I can assure you that when he rejoins, Jackson will be getting much more support up front. If he continues to play poorly with the addition of Nkunku, then and only then will I admit that we need a new striker. For now though, let's just hope that he returns from the international break refreshed and ready to prove himself to all those who doubt him. Moving on swiftly to the second hurdle, the injuries. I know what you're thinking, it's not just Chelsea facing injuries, but I think it's fair to say that we had it pretty bad. In my last video, I touched on it lightly, but in total, we had 14 injuries at one point. 14 injuries. This included the likes of Reece James, Ben Chilwell, Nkunku, Lavia, Gusto, Broja, Palmer, Disasi, Jackson, Badiashile, Chalobah, Chukwuemeka, Bettinelli, and Fofana. This team has spent more time together recovering than actually playing football. Now by the 25th, most of our team should be returning, but my concern lies with our future, because some of our best players are so injury prone that I just don't see them going a full year without some sort of setback. My theory as to why we keep getting injured is because the squad isn't used to the overly aggressive and physically demanding football that Pochettino is offering. Most of our players are young and fit, so this shouldn't be an issue for them, but it seems to be more than they can handle. If that's the case, then Poch is going to have to be more careful with how he pushes his team, because we cannot be getting any more injuries. I asked some of my friends as to why they think Chelsea get injured so frequently, and they just said we're shit. So I'm just going to move on to my final point. And my final point is the top 4 itself. Let me explain. At first, we have City, nothing new there. Next to them is Liverpool, who are pretty solid. They did lose recently to Toulouse, but they didn't start Alisson, Salah, Trent, or Van Dijk, so I'm pretty certain they would have won if they played their main team. Arsenal's a bit more questionable, as they cleaned up against Sheffield United, but recently failed to make it past sides like Newcastle and West Ham. They also have an overwhelming amount of injuries pulling them down, so their spot in the top 4 is not as guaranteed, but they're still a solid contender. Fourth is Tottenham, who have surprised everyone with their unbeaten start to this season, which we recently shattered. But my point here is that the top 4 is almost impenetrable. Almost. From first all the way down to fourth, there's only a 2-point gap. The quality of football these teams have been playing is unparalleled, and the only way I see us making the top 4 is if Spurs or Arsenal choke. I know Chelsea aren't just going to jump from 10th to 4th, but in the long run, I see us making it. We've gotten through the biggest teams, so now is our chance to climb up the table. If Chelsea really want this, then Jackson needs to do his job up front. Pochettino must make sure his players don't sustain any more injuries, and we all have to hope that the top 4 start dropping points. Otherwise, our dreams of Champions League football will never come.